Welcome to Project Hardway. My name is Jeff, and this is Little Green, my 1994 Chevy S10 that I bought off my dad for just $500. If you've been here before and you've been following along, you know we've been doing some work on this truck. A couple little seam sealer issues, had a water leak in the cab, refreshed the carpet a little bit, put a new headliner in it, shined it up on the outside, fixed a couple mechanical issues. Well, today we're going to get in here and we're going to give the interior a little bit of a makeover on the cheap and dirty. Let's get into it. So to start things off, I've got a new set of speakers for the front and a new set of door mirrors off of a 98 and up Chevy S10. I already upgraded the speakers back here in the back when I had these interior panels off when I was working on the carpet and the headliner and the water leak. Now it's time to upgrade the front. I went with the Kicker KS in the back because that's the speaker that I prefer to use, but for the deal that I got for these, I got both of these as a package. I got these for a little bit more than what I would have paid for just one or the other of the KS series, and it's still better than stock, much better than stock, so we're going to put those in there. These door mirrors are going to look a lot better than what's on the truck right now, these funny little Mickey Mouse ear looking things, and they won't have a crack in the glass either. So these trucks use a 6.5-inch speaker in the doors and a 4x6 speaker in the dash, along with a 4x6 speaker in the back if you've got an extended cab. Something I didn't know about these S10 trucks that are the extended cab version, on those dash speakers, there's nothing in there. I popped the grill out of the dash to see what speaker was in there before I ordered it. It was just a 4x6 piece of paper blank screwed down where a speaker would go. Not to be deterred, I'm going to run some speaker wire down through the dash into the radio so that I can have 6 speakers in the truck. Now before we get into that, I got to get this door trim panel off. There's a screw here and a screw down here, and then you got to get this window handle off here because there's no power windows. You know, it doesn't have that. So I got to get this off here. Now there's an evil little clip back there that holds this thing in place, and they make a tool to pop that off. I don't have that tool. So I'm going to do like I've been doing for the last 20 years and try to pop it off with a couple of screwdrivers, and I'm going to scratch this door trim panel up and all sorts of fun stuff. The mirrors are not an interior upgrade, I know, but in order to replace those mirrors, I have to take the door trim panel off because they screw in back here behind this. So mazel while I'm here. Got the panel off anyway for the speaker. Get that done quick and easy. 3 nuts hold that on to the outside of the truck, and it's ready to go. And there we go. Door trim panel's off. Look at all that old paper insulator in there. Funky. I'm not going to do anything with or about that right now. All I care about is getting this old paper speaker out that is now ruined and replacing it with a much better one. GM must have had a stock and torque style hardware. This speaker uses 4 T10 Allen, or not Allen, torque screws to hold it in. And those will not be going back in this truck. Nothing wrong with our buddy Philip. So I get those screws out, pull the speaker out, then no need to worry about unplugging the harness. Just cut it because we're not going to be able to plug that into our new speakers anyway. So before we put those speakers in, I'm going to slap a couple of terminal connectors on there, slide terminal connectors, and get that ready to go on the new speakers. So most new speakers come with a length of wire with those slide connectors on it, so we'll be in business once we get this opened up. And boom, there's our new speakers. They're not the cheapest kickers they have, they're just a step up from that, but they will be a much welcome improvement over what we had before. Get those out of there, we'll be using those. Kicker CS. Very nice. Whoops. So there we've got the new speaker installed. Simply plug in the connectors, put the speaker in there, screw it in. Now this speaker doesn't line up with the holes that were there for the factory speakers, but this housing is plastic So I took a pick and I made a mark where I wanted to put my holes at, put a pilot hole in there, and then lightly screwed these screws in there without blowing through the plastic and stripping it out. It's in there, not going anywhere. Now it's time to put the new mirror on. It's going to look a lot better. There's three 10mm screws, three 10mm nuts inside these holes. I'll take those out, pop this bad boy in. I misspoke, they're 8mm. So the foam insulator that came with my new mirror is not near as good as the one that's there on the truck already. So I'm going to reuse that one. Slide it in. And the hardware for the new mirror is a 10mm. Came with new hardware for it. That new mirror's on now and it looks way better than the original ones. Got the new speaker in. Now would be the time to go through and replace all your inner door insulation. Maybe add some insulation, Dynamat if you got a system, weather stripping, foam tape, anything like that. Now would be the time to do that if you care. I don't. So I'm ready to put this door trim panel back on. However, I will look at the inside of the door trim panel and any of those plastic push pins, if they're broken or missing, I will put those on so the door trim panel doesn't flop around on me. Now I would be putting this window crank handle back on if when I took the clip out, it didn't go to the automotive equivalent of Davy Jones' locker. So I'll have to get a new one of those, but aside from the window crank handle, this door trim panel is back on, ready to jump over to the other side, knock that one out, and then we'll knock out those dash speakers. Now before we start trying to route wires through the dashboard up there, first thing I did was remove the radio, kind of basic stuff. You got to sit here and pull this entire thing out of there. And when you start popping it and pulling it, of course, there's always the risk with this stuff for it to completely explode in your face, but you know, that's just the way it goes sometimes.
That's what she said.
Luckily this one's already been broken a couple of times, and so it didn't happen on this one. It just, you know, we got it out the way that we needed to. Pulled the radio out, pulled the wire harness out. Now these aftermarket wire harnesses tend to have the wires labeled, so I've identified my left front speaker, my right front speaker. Essentially, I'm going to run those wires down through the dash, then with the other side of the harness, put all them together so that those tie in to these. Show you what I'm talking about here in a second. Alright, so the objective here, god dang it, sat out on my speaker cover. Oh boy. So the objective here is to send some of that wire down through that hole, probably see it somewhere down here, try to fish it sideways up over this top of the steering column, and end up somewhere back there. Sure, maybe through there. Alright, so after removing that panel to get better access under there to try to snake that thing up there, I got it all the way over here and couldn't quite figure out how to get it into that hole. So I pulled it all out, and I went back, and I was going to snake it back through there and push it through. And I got to looking. You can just go from there up over the top of the combi meter, and just, you know, your gauges, and then back up through there. Boom, there it is. Considerably less wire used. Now I'll just put that at the length it needs to be and figure out what to do on the passenger side. Well, there's one done. Now, the other side. All right, now in on this side. Much tighter places and spaces back there. Not as easy to see under as the other side. So I tried the same route going over the top. Couldn't quite make anything happen, so I thought I'd take the glove box out. Well, the glove box is actually just a molded part of the dash structure. But having the door and frame off of it gave me access to some of these holes that I could guide the wire down through and eventually make it pop out over here. So now I just need to get that cut, get the speaker connected, and finish up, because now I'm at the point in the project where tools and parts of the truck are scattered throughout the truck and throughout the shop. So you see I got my harness here, new speaker wires spliced in with these smaller wires that go on the radio side of the harness. So all that output will go into there, and these will go to the ones in the doors, these will go to the ones in the dash, and we'll have 6 speakers in the truck. Put all this disaster back together, test it, make sure I got some sound, And then there is another big deal coming here. Don't those new mirrors look great? Now, sat here before the truck is a pair of Chevy Cavalier seats that I went and acquired from the junkyard. After spending 5 seconds on the forums online, you'll find that depending on what year your truck is and what year the car is that you got those seats out of, these may or may not be a direct bolt-in to your seat. The advantage is it's a bit more bolstered than the stock S10 seats, even though I've got the split bench bucket deal going on, and it sits a couple inches lower in the floorboard, which might help you out with the leverage on the clutch pedal when this starts getting to bother you. However, I didn't dig too far into it, so I don't know if that's going to work out for mine, but right now, not too bad out. I'm going to pull these seats out and drop these in, see where they go. Yeet! Well, unfortunately, I will not be so lucky for these to drop into mine. Time to start modifying the rails. So I've got the seats side by side here in the garage floor, and doing a quick measurement between these mounting bolts here, it's about 13.5 inches on both. I may get lucky and be able to just unbolt these rails from my seat, bolt them to that seat, and just slap it in the truck. Gonna see how that goes. Success! The hardware for the S10 seat is shorter than the Cavalier seat, so I use the S10 seat hardware because it's not, you know, it's tall. Throw it in there, see how it fits. This thing is in here, and it, I'd say it's a big improvement. Doesn't really sit any lower than the other seat did, but it feels a lot more comfortable in the posture department. So we'll see if the passenger side is just as easy as this one was. Well, these things are in here now, and man, I'm so happy with the way they sit in the car. They sit so much more comfortable, and because I'm using the factory seat rails, I even was able to put the S10 covers back on them. Well, you know, nice little touch. Okay, yeah, they're a little bit weathered. They're from a junkyard. They're a different color, but I'm okay with that. I pressure washed the absolute hell out of these things and let them set out in the sun for several days, and I'm fond of the Mexican saddle blanket style seat covers, so I'm gonna buy a set of those for it and slap them on. But in the meantime, there's a problem. See, I've given up something that I had before, and it's a big deal, all right? One, it's an armrest, and two, cup holders. But I've got something for that. Enter this thing. This is a center console that I pulled out of a Ford Explorer in the junkyard. I think I paid like 12 bucks for this. It's nice. It's got armrest that folds up. This whole thing opens up to an inside tray. It's got two cup holders, a little slot here for what have you. It's nice and it's skinny. It's all complete. It's not busted up and broken. It's just a little dingy. So I'm going to clean it up. I've already slid it down between the seats and found that it fits. The way it goes into the vehicle, don't lose nothing. This pedestal here. There were some studs that stuck out of the floor in the Explorer, and then a nut went down on top of them. So I've got a couple of different options here. I can just slide it in the truck and let it be loose in there. Yeah, we've done that, right? Then I could also just drill a hole in the floor, put a nut and a bolt through it. A little bit of pain in the ass, you know, you gotta have two people for that. Or I can put a couple of nut certs in the floor and then bolt it down on top of it, and it be in there about like it should be. So while I work on getting that console cleaned up and ready to put in the truck, there's one final upgrade I want to make to the interior, and that's this steering wheel. This thing is 15.5 inches wide. It's foam, and the foam is deteriorating. It even crumbs on your hands every time you drive it. And this truck does not have the tilt column. So even with these seats in it, when I slide in and out, my leg is still rubbing on the bottom of it. The fix for this is going to be this. This is a Momo steering wheel. It's the cheapest one they make. It's $175. It's not leather. It's actually polyurethane, which is okay. It is a 350 millimeter wheel, more in line with more modern cars. It's not too small, not too big, and it's got the flat bottom design on it, so it gives me a little bit more room getting in and out of the truck. I'm gonna pop this thing off. I'm gonna put that one on, and then we'll be ready to go. Pop this horn button off. Just a quick pull, unplug the wire for the horn, maybe. There's a little clip that goes over the end of that steering wheel nut. I have to pop that off there, then bust that bad boy loose. There we go. Got it. We got this big old 13/16 nut on here. Should have got an extension. There we go. Some people can pull these things off. I don't think I've ever successfully done it. Maybe in my 240. I don't like pulling on the column like that too much, so I'm gonna go grab my steering wheel removal tool. Now these things are pretty simple to use. There's a couple of threaded holes in your steering wheel. Find the bolts in the kit that fit in those holes, thread them in there, get everything centered up nice and tight. Then with a 5/8 socket on the end of it, apply pressure and it should come right on off there. And there we go. Steering wheel's off. Make sure that you mark top. All right, you need to know that you've got the steering wheel going back on straight when you're doing your stuff in the event that this gets turned. This one's got a little notch in it, so I know for sure that that's the top, but if it's not, just to be safe, mark it. All right, we got our horn wire back. And before you can put your new steering wheel on, you've got to have a steering wheel adapter. This one I bought on Amazon for $30-something. Not too bad. It's not a quick release. It's not a race car. I'm not climbing over, you know, roll cages and stuff. This is just fine. I don't need to take the steering wheel off. This, I believe, may be the same exact one NRG sells for over $100. So, sure. But make sure it fits your vehicle. Got this little hole here for this horn wire to go through. Make sure that the bolt pattern for the steering wheel is going to have your steering wheel oriented in the correct position. For us, it's right there. Now we just take our nut, put it back on there, and tighten it down. Where'd my ratchet go? Oh. Oops. I created the ground. So now for my horn button, it comes with a plate that gets sandwiched between the adapter and the steering wheel. It's got two connectors here, one to go there for my horn, and then another that I'll hook the ground up here, that when I hit the button, it creates the connection. Only problem is that the adapter here has got a male connector, and I need a female spade connector on that, so I'll have to change that out real quick. There we go, we got our connections made on our horn button there. It works. Now to get this stuff to tuck in behind here like I need it to. Uh-oh, gonna have to rotate some of this a little bit. Wire space is a commodity back there right now. So I shortened this little plastic clip that holds the horn wire in place, but there's a new problem. All right, so with this Amazon adapter, the steering shaft sticks out too far and doesn't leave enough room for my horn button to go on. So I'm gonna have to find a solution, maybe return this adapter. So I found a solution for my horn button issue, and that's this 12mm steering wheel spacer. It's about 1/2 inch. It should give me the clearance that I need for my horn button to go onto the steering wheel and not hit the stud coming out of the steering column. So as you see, at least on this seat, I've got my Mexican saddle blanket style seat cover. Looks pretty good. Now I've got my center console here loosely assembled, all cleaned up. The idea is that I'll wedge this between these two, get down in here and maybe mark on the carpet with a Sharpie where a couple of these holes for this mounting pedestal are, and then take it all apart, pop that seat out of my way, cut a hole in the carpet for this, drill 4 holes, pop rib nuts in it, and then I'll be able to solid mount it. The pedestal is now flat on the floor, so it looks like that would be about where we're at. I'm gonna jump in that seat over there, make sure I like where my arm's at, make sure I've got room for my shifter. How's that feel? It'll go back. Well, all right, so a tall drink in this cup holder, you know, might be at risk here. But that's okay. All right, well, see if I can mark out some holes on the floor there and get this thing mounted. Seats out, mounts out, down to the mounting pedestal there. Sharpie, MIA. But I've got this do not use in a confined space paint marker, so I've made a couple of marks here. I realize looking at it now that everything's out, I'm a little off center, so I'm gonna take this, line it up, you know, that way, and then pull it this way to get it more centered on the floor of the truck, and mark those holes. Now I know where I want this thing to sit. Oh, that's on me! I'm gonna cut the carpet out just between the dots, make a little rectangle. I'm gonna leave the insulation underneath for insulation purposes. But I want the carpet out of the way because I don't want this pedestal sitting on too many things that'll let it flex and wiggle around. Oh gosh. Phew, going right through there. Good. Now I could have used a straight edge or maybe traced around the whole base of that thing, but I think I can get it close enough, and it's going to be under the console. You'll never see it, except for right now. Get out of there! Alright. A little section of carpet out there. Need to trim a little more, I suppose. Full bore now. Alright. Well, that quickly turned into a hard-way hack job. Oops. But I've got the exposed floor that I need. I'll melt a couple of holes in that insulation, and then make the holes I need for my rib nuts. All right, I had to call it quits yesterday for the night because after using one of these had to call it quits last night after using one of these drill gauges to determine what size hole I needed for my rib nut here. This is a M8 rib nut I've decided to go with in the floor here. And this little guy right here, you know, you just stick it in there until you find the one that fits. To find one that fits snugly for this, I need a 27/64 hole. I want it to be, you know, snug. Most drill bit sets don't come with one of those, so a quick trip to Lowe's, got the drill bit I need. I'm gonna punch those out and we'll get it mounted in there. All right, I got holes in the back, you know, for those, where that goes. But up here in the front, the surface is not flat. The trans-tunnel narrows there, drops off, and so if I put a rib nut in there, it's going to be sideways, and I need to go down. So that's not going to work. But that console's squeezed in there pretty tight between the seats. It's not going to move a lot, so I think I'm just going to run with the two in the back. It'll be better than just sticking it on the floor and letting it do whatever it wants to. I don't think it's going to be an issue. So let's get those rib nuts set up and pop a couple in there. So the way these work is pretty cool. It's got a little stud here on the end. You've got these little, instead of rivets, you've got these little inserts here. They're threaded. You put one on there, whatever size you need. You can change out the head. Boom. You spread the jaws open and it sticks up. Put that on there. Stick it into the hole that you want to fill and squeeze it. You see it squishes it, and that squished area right there clamps around the hole you've made in your floor. So now that I've wasted that one, we'll pop a couple in the floor here. Got my nutcert all loaded up. Stick it in the hole. Get in your hole. Make sure it's flush with the surface and squeeze. All right, then just unthread it. Boom! Threaded hole in the floorboard of the truck. There we go. She's in there. Give her one of those. That ain't going nowhere. Feels pretty firm. It's not moving at all. My holes weren't exactly spread out like they should be, so I did have to waller out the holes in the mount just a little bit though. Now it's in there, and so now we'll build up the console around it, put the seat back in it, and put the new seat cover on it. Well, there we go. Nothing too crazy or drastic, just a couple little things to upgrade it a little bit, make it a little more comfortable in here. Now, we're not done with this truck just yet. There are 3 significant things that I want to get done with it, so keep watching for those videos to come out, and trust me, I haven't forgotten about my big block Camaro. Till then, guys, remember, sometimes gotta do things the hard way.